Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions. It's going to be the last video for the week. We're going to look at a creator's request, which is where somebody in a band requests that I check out the music they're creating. Today's request comes at us from Josh. Says, I hope you're doing well. I work with Famined Records. We're a great fan of your page. We're reaching out to see if you'd be interested in listening to one of our artists, WINDRUNNER, with their new single, Cyan. So that's what we're going to do today. We got a pretty interesting animated flair to this thumbnail. Don't know what we're in store for, but let's jump into it. Yeah, lots of energy just starting off right here. Going in hard on this groove. Really nice contrast between the vocal range and all the instruments. Yeah, it has a really strong hook right here. I'm really enjoying the vocal line, especially up against the rhythmic elements and the rest of the instruments. Yeah, in this section right here, playing around with the volume and the panning, we have a really nice synth thing going on in the backgrounds. I like how we didn't go back to a chorus for a second time, creating a bit more of a linear feel for this. That drumming, golly. So we took the lyrics from the chorus and applied them in a different section just now. Really cool solo section coming in here. We've moved away from the rhythmic elements from the beginning. Of course, as I say that. Yeah, really cool section playing around with dotted notes to give the like off-kilter rhythmic feeling, and also a lot of silence, which also helps with that. Yeah, real cool stuff. Right off the bat, before we start getting into some music, I want to make a couple of notes not relating to the music. I like the animated style. I think it's an interesting way to differentiate themselves from, um, a lot of the other music videos that are out there. Most metal music videos that at least I've seen on the channel and in my own time tend to be live action stuff. And this helps separate them visually, assuming that they run with this idea in all their stuff, sort of like a Gorillaz kind of vibe, where their music videos are all done in the same style and kind of separate themselves visually from their peers. I also like the play on words. There's a lot of interesting things that I noticed in that opening text crawl, or it wasn't a crawl, the opening wall of text there. There's some interesting play on words, and one of the big things is something about cyanide. Um, yeah, the chemical is called cyanide, but it has like numbers in it because it rewrites the DNA of things. So we rewrite the use of numerals, which is pretty interesting. But then the song's also called Cyan, and she speaks about the cyan skies and the cyan eyes. So a little bit of some soft rhyming with a little bit of play on words going on there. Uh, I don't know what else is done in there. In the lyrics, it's really the ones I picked up. They were in the chorus. They were repeated once at least, maybe twice, which is probably why I picked them up. But it was one of the things that stood out to me in the vocal line. I thought that was pretty interesting. So let's dig into some of the music, though. We have sort of this divide between a song that wants to be very beautiful with strong melody writing over top, atmospheric foundational work, and then super disjointed, genty kind of lower range rhythmic ideas. And we see the song not fighting with itself over the which one would be dominant, but sort of moving along a spectrum between these two ideas. Sometimes we get areas where we have both of them in equal measure. Sometimes we have a little bit of one, a little bit of the other, and there are a couple of sections that are kind of pushed all the way towards one side or the other. And I think it works so well for me. I've talked about this before, where I love the atmospheres that metal can create with the heaviness and abrasiveness of the tone that metal is really great at creating, but I'm also a huge fan of melodic writing, especially when we get stuff like harmony and counterpoint, and some ideas that typically resonate in more mainstream styles of music, and classical, bringing in some classical ideas there. Um, and to me, kind of a perfect song is the marriage of the two. Get some nice peanut butter and uh, chocolate stuff going on, where it's the best of both worlds. Strong melody writing, and then that abrasive atmosphere that metal can do. So something like this is definitely up my alley as far as casual listening is concerned. Um, but even aside from that, which I am probably going to gush about this song a little bit in this analysis because it is something that I would listen to on my own time, there are some really neat ideas in here, and they have a strong sense for flow and contrast. I think that's their two main things that I'm really looking at here. Um, so the song also, which caught me off guard, is a little more linear than I was expecting. We have our intro. We go into our rhythmically oriented verse, verse. Then we move into a little bit more melodic based in the chorus, and we go into a second verse that isn't it's not really a second verse. It brings back some of the ideas from the first verse, but it does not retain the melody line. It does not retain the chronology, the structure of the verse. Um, so it feels like it's half of a verse and half of a new section kind of smashed together, which is an interesting way to transition into the next part, which I was expecting to be a revisiting of the chorus, and it was not. It was a brand new section. And that led us into what I would probably traditionally call the bridge, but from here on out, it was new section after new section, and it brings the song to a very linear type of construction, composition that I think it works really well because they sneak ways or they sneak ideas in from the beginning of the song, stuff that we've heard before into new contexts, and brings a little bit of an idea of theming throughout. I don't know if I necessarily want to call it theme because it's not like we bring this idea back multiple times. It's more of revisiting an older section within a new context one time. And technically, I'd say that's a theme, but to me, a theme is something that pops up often. And twice to me is not often. But I do really enjoy what they're doing, regardless of what the name is that I attribute to it. There's a couple of guitar riffs, there's a couple of rhythmic ideas that come back from the beginning. I think the most prominent one, the easiest one to pick out, is that the chorus lyrics come back, but it's done in a much more mellow, subdued atmosphere, with the rest of the instruments really leaning hard into the melodic and synthesizer atmosphere stuff than they were at the beginning. So yeah, I'm a real big fan of that. I think it is once again the best of both worlds. It doesn't have the repetition of a mainstream structured song where we're revisiting verses and choruses, but it is not like a rhapsody where it's constantly moving forward. It's revisiting ideas. It's like a mix of them. It is a linear song, but we're getting elements of repetition thrown in. Best of both worlds. I mean, honestly, it's just so it's done very well for my tastes at least. Um, what was it? Oh, the drums. I gotta touch on the drums, man. I think I'm becoming a bit of a drumhead. I feel like all week I've been gushing about drummers. And I think it's just been a good week though. This drummer is fantastic, does a great job at sitting in a groove despite some of the rhythmic offsetting that's done in what would be the bass kick, I think it is, and the guitars. They're really going into that offset rhythmic element, that sort of the djenty rhythm that is kind of attributed to that genre. It's a lot of really short, sharp attacks done in rhythmically complex ways and combined into usually some sort of grouping structure that's not balanced. So instead of having groups of three, it could be like a group of three, and then a group of two, and then a group of three, and then a group of four, and then the group of two. So you kind of memorize these groups while you're playing it, and it creates an overall flow on the larger picture. But when you're listening to each individual moment as they go by, it seems a bit disjointed. I don't think I've ever explained that in such detail, but that's what I mean when I say, a djenty rhythmic element or rhythms based on the djent genre. It really is these sharp groupings of rhythms that are not similar throughout. So we have that kind of drumming, I think, going on in the bass, and it's going the bass kick going along with what the guitars are doing. But there's always some sort of instrument. I think it's the cymbal most of the time in this song. The cymbal just seems to be where this sits, anyways. that performs the metronome feature, the metronome function, I should say, of the drumming, of really keeping that core downbeat so that it's easier for the listener to groove along and for the rest of the band to kind of feel along the time and where they are in particular with that. But then we get these moments like halfway through the song, and the drummer gets this extended, it's got to be 2 or 3 bars, maybe 4 bar drum solo. And it is just bonkers. Real nice speed to it all. There's a bit of awe inspiring just from that, but also some really nice technicalities in little embellishments. And he might be doing like a run from the snare to the toms. You get this nice low end run, but there'll be a splash of cymbal thrown in there real quick. Just really great job all over with the drumming. Stood out to me for a lot of this track. I would say that the drumming stood out, the vocals stood out, and I think that's where I'm going to leave that. I don't want to say that the guitars and bass were unimpressive. Unfortunately, I didn't hear much of the bass. I don't know if that was the mix or my headphones or if I think because a lot of the guitar work was rhythmic oriented, in which case the bass would be in the rhythm of the guitar and the guitar could just have been drowning it out in the mix, especially if the bass is doing octave work, basically playing the root of whatever the guitar is doing or the note of what the guitar is doing, but an octave or two down. It's going to get drowned out a bit just because it's a lower frequency. So I guess that's a possibility. It happens a lot in that style of playing, unfortunately. I really like when the bass is doing something different than the guitar, and usually I advocate for that, but I don't know that that works so much in this because the rhythmic ideas can get super muddied over with doing that. So I think it's just a feature of writing heavily rhythmic music like this. Though there were a lot of moments at the end of the song where we reached more of a melodic orientation, really focusing on melody writing, especially in the guitars, and I still didn't really pick up the bass much. And that, I mean, like I said, that could be my thing. Maybe I just wasn't looking for it. I was paying attention to some other things, but I just don't remember hearing any, which is a bit unfortunate. Um, but I don't want to say the guitars are unimpressive. There is a nice guitar solo midway through the song. It's just that for a majority of the track, they're playing the support role. In the rhythmic sections, they're playing the foundational rhythm. And in the more melodic sections, for the most part, they're playing the chord progression for the vocalist to do their melody line over. They just really don't have a lot of chances to shine musically or in the mix. Because they are going for more of a mainstream style mix where the melody takes center stage, the drumming and usually the bass would be a little under that, also centered, and then your guitars are going to be the floor, or any of your harmonic and chordal based elements. They're going to be your foundational work. So they're going to be even under or around the drums. They just really don't have a chance to be showcased in this song. So I don't want to say that they're unimpressive. I mean, they're playing extremely tight, extremely difficult to play rhythmic elements. They just don't have a chance to be spotlighted. I think that's my big takeaway on this one. Especially when the drumming when the drumming was done so well, and the vocals were such a contrast to some of the rest of the music that they stood out. Um, yeah, we already had two instruments that, at least to me, were taking the spotlight. You can't share the spotlight with everyone. That's not how spotlight works. um, so yeah, I do really enjoy the vocals though. I think having this range works very well against sort of that gent sound of really emphasizing more of a lower range in your guitars. It's a great contrast for that. I think the vocals got lost a little bit there in the second time they brought the chorus idea around, but on the final section, she took the vocals up a hair bit. I don't think it was a full octave, but the vocal range increased just a hair bit because a lot of the instruments were going towards more of a melodic line and they were going up into a higher range to play these melodies. So she needed to be on top of that again rather than mixing it. So that was a really good decision there as well. I don't think it worked as well there as a contrasting element with all the other instruments coming into the same range, but it was definitely a smart decision to move those up and get them out of the way, to elevate them a bit. Um, I think the worst, if I have any criticism for the song, other than the bass seemingly being non-present, which again, like I said, could be my fault there. I think my main criticism is that the song is a bit forgettable for me. And I don't mean that in like a super condescending way. It's just that this style of music is very saturated today. Um, and it's probably going to get blended up in my brain with a lot of bands like uh, Aviations and yeah, I can't even think of the band names. There's just a lot of bands today doing these highly rhythmic things with higher range vocals and electronic stuff behind them, creating that specific type of atmosphere, that sort of bright but heavy, electro genty pop. Actually, I still need to do that, genty pop. And oh man, I'm saying that. Yep, I can't think of the band name. But there's a lot of bands doing this, and I don't feel like anything here particularly stands out against what a lot of the other bands are doing. And that's for better or worse. At the end of the day, the band's job is to make music hopefully for themselves. I mean, it's nice to be able to live off of your art, but I think art for yourself should always be the primary reason to make it. And as long as they're happy making this music, I don't think that my criticism needs to be taken too seriously. I should probably say that more often, especially with bands that I'm probably a bit more critical of. But I definitely want to say it here. As long as Windrunner is happy making the music that they are, they can completely ignore that last criticism. But for me as a listener, I do feel like it's getting blended in with a lot of other music I've heard in a similar style. So that's really not that big of a criticism though, because I still jammed out to this. So, I enjoyed every minute I was listening to this. Those are my thoughts though on Windrunner's Cyan. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one or not. Anything that might have stuck out to you. Anything that maybe bounced off of you. You didn't quite enjoy. Anything that I might have missed in my analysis that you think would be interesting or important to talk about. Go ahead and leave those comments. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree, which will take you to a menu with everything related to the channel. Discord, Patreon, Twitter, email, special selection. If you're a band and you want me to check out your stuff, make sure you email me. If you're a viewer and you want me to check out some music that you really enjoy, hit me up on that special selection. That's the best way to get in contact with me regarding those things. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I won't be back tomorrow. It's the weekend. It's a good time to catch up on some of the stuff that I've put out this week. Or if you're a new viewer, new subscriber, if you're a new subscriber, you can take that time to look at all the other videos we've done. I recently announced on Wednesday, I think it was, that we just did our 500th unique band. So if there's a good chance that one of your favorite bands I've probably reacted to by now. Um, so yeah, but then I'll be back Monday. We'll be starting Halloween week. No special selections, no creators request. We are doing 5 songs voted on by the patrons and 5 songs randomly selected from the YouTube comments. Um, Hopefully, we get a nice batch of 10 spooky or horror themed or horror adjacent Halloween based songs. It's going to be real interesting. We have a special guest reacting all of those days. I'm excited for that. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.